Great. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today for the 2014, the beginning of the new normal for talent in America and how it impacts you. We would like to welcome our hosts, Dwain and Jerry, both of DHR International Executive Vice Presidents. Jerry is located in our New York office, and Dwain is located in our Chicago office of DHR. Dwain has more than 20 years as a commercial leader, primarily in larger consumer goods firms. He is the leader of our global diversity practice at DHR International, which is a top 5 global search firm. And also he's the author of 4 books and many articles, which his newest book is Recruiter's Guide to Hiring Diverse Leadership Talent. We'd also like to welcome again Jerry McGrath. He's a former Senior Vice President of Human Resources. He has worked for many years and as a retained search consultant. He is at DHR, has been here for about a year. Before that, he was at Caldwell Partners. And he leads the Global Human Resources Practice Group for DHR International. So thank you, everyone, for joining me today. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Dwain and Jerry.
Hey, thank you very much, Lauren. And want to also welcome Jerry to the webinar today.
Good afternoon, Dwain.
All right, and this should be a pretty fast-moving 45 minutes or so between the three of us. Three of the things we want to talk about today are large macro changes for the U.S. and what they may mean and should mean for your organization with respect to talent acquisition. And then lastly, there have some implications for you as an HR professional, and we'll spend a little bit of time on that. So first, going back to 2013, Warren Buffett spent about 89% of his investments in the U.S. So obviously he's seen something that is very important from a very different vantage point than we might see. And the areas that are favoring the U.S. are energy, manufacturing, our relationships with China on the manufacturing side, and investments. So I'll quickly go through these areas. Our energy is not independent at this point, but we are certainly moving in that direction. And in the near term, we've seen gas prices come down dramatically. But one of the bigger benefits of energy improvements are the impact on liquid natural gas. Liquid natural gas is a byproduct of the work we do to secure oil from the ground. But liquid natural gas, those prices have been reduced dramatically because that byproduct goes directly into manufacturing. As a critical input into our manufacturing operations, it makes us a much more cost-competitive environment than we've ever been in many, many years. In fact, our costs, based on a study by BCG, are not much different than those in China. China's still number 1, but our costs are now only 5% different than China, whereas historically we've been more than 50% more expensive to produce here than there. The next thing that has occurred is that our retirements are changing dramatically. ADP has indicated that over the next 5 years, 18% of our workforce will retire. And as you think about the last 5 or so years, there was certainly a difference in our view of retirement than they have been recently, with the 401ks being full again, with many persons being healthier from their housing standpoints. They can think about retirement, whereas they couldn't as recently as 4 to 5 years ago. So with all those things being said, we want to think about and spend most of our energy on the employer implications of this improved United States environment for business. These are the 4 areas that Jerry and I will spend our time speaking about. Retaining top talent. Organizations now are both buyers and sellers of talent. Creating a pipeline such that you don't wait until the last minute, and making sure that you're a great place to work, because that is a requirement to get some of the best talent that's available. So let's begin. So Jerry, as we've talked, they're both free techniques and financial means of retaining top talent. Share with us some thoughts around some of the free techniques that you think organizations you've worked with have successfully used to retain their best talent.
Sure, Dwayne. Well, I think it comes down to the central issue of leadership, and that connection that people feel emotionally to their employer where they work. And I think that it's, on the one hand, very key for organizations to be systematic in terms of knowing who the top performers are by level throughout what I call the ecosystem, from the mailroom to the boardroom, and really ensuring that they have a handle, much like a franchise of a sports team would know who the high performers are, the top 10, the top 20%, and really making sure that there's a connection there, that you know where the individual's interest lies. So it's really not a cost in terms of compensation, but it's letting people know that they are well regarded and high performing, so that they don't pick up the phone to a recruiter, like Dwayne or myself. I'll stop there, Dwayne.
Thank you, Jerry. Well, we've laid out a couple of ideas that are free techniques that many of our clients have used. One is recognition of job well done, providing quality feedback to your employees so they have a good sense of where they are with respect to their responsibilities, and ensuring that your talent actually has a developmental plan. As you know, many organizations have IDPs, but the question is not do you have them, but are they being used, and are they being used consistently? We found that the data suggests that, similar to what Jerry said, that people leave because of a bad boss, and some of these things will enable many of your better performers to recognize that it's about the organization, hopefully in addition to the supervisor. As we think about ideas beyond what's free, there are clearly the financial techniques that can be used or employed. Retention bonuses, incentive pay that gets paid, because there are many clients that we've worked with that have incentives that don't typically get paid. And those are areas that perhaps merit a new look to ensure that if you have an opportunity to have a 40% bonus payout, that the persons who are achieving goals are not chronically getting 5 and 10%, because those are some of the things that encourage some of the better talent to leave the organization. Any organizations come to mind with you on some of these, Jerry?
Well, I'm here in New York, and obviously the big industry here in town is the financial services industry, and I think the firms like the Citibanks and UBS across the street and others, Goldman Sachs, of course, the preeminent firm that is very adept at using that combination of good feedback to high performers as well as sophisticated compensation programs to make it very hard for high performers to leave, and that is tying their success and their performance to the success of the organization, so that they're really feeling a connection, that their pay is rewarded and is rising consistent with the top of the house and the overall success of the organization. So I think those are, we all can look to organizations, whatever industry sector you all might be in, that are the preeminent, the preeminent brands and the preeminent high-performing companies in those sectors. And I will be quite confident in saying that they have sophisticated compensation and leadership techniques to retain top talent, and that's why they're so successful.
Excellent. Well, let's move to the second area with respect to thinking about talent as a buyer and seller's market. If you think back to 5 years ago, if an organization had an opening, once that opening was made available to the marketplace, be it on their website or through any number of means, there were tremendous amounts of people who were pursuing that opening. Many of them were not qualified, but nonetheless, large numbers of people would pursue that opening, and there would be a nice subset of high-quality applicants. Now, when you think about not just applicants, but the persons you most want for those roles, those better candidates are tending to have more options. I know in many of the searches I've worked on recently, some of the better candidates, when we were discussing this opportunity with our client, they had more than one alternative they were considering. In fact, in a recent case, two of our best candidates, and we got them both, but they had other options that they were considering, which was quite different than as recently as 3 years ago. Are you seeing some of that as well, Jerry?
Very definitely. I think that when you think back 6 years, the Great Recession or the financial meltdown, I think for the 3-4 years after that, to the degree that we had searches, a lot of people in the search business were forgetting to ask the candidate that was in process, what else do you have going on? Are you close on anything else? Because we felt that there were very few opportunities and that A players, we were the only person talking to that particular individual. Now, in the last year or two, I've continually, every update phone call, every keeping warm phone call that I have with a candidate that's in play with a client, I'm also saying, how is everything going? Are you looking at anything else? And I'm finding people saying, well, yes, quite yes, I've had a second round at another opportunity. So two things there. One is we've got to maintain the momentum and keep up the pace on the search I'm working on. Second thing is that I know that I'm talking to an A player, and so that's validating, and that's what we try to communicate to our clients. The key is that searches are not like fine wine; they don't get better with age. We like momentum, and it really says a lot about a client's opportunity when there's good momentum to a search in terms of people making time for the process.
Yeah,
I'll stop there.
I think that's a great segue to the second bullet of accelerating the process.
Right.
I think at DHR our goal is 90 days on a search, and we are relatively close to that goal on most of our projects. But I think in the light of the current market conditions, our clients have many organizations are now in a position where they perhaps need to think about the timing of their process to maintain the momentum, as you mentioned, as well as to ensure that they actually get that talent on their team. Because in the two examples that I shared where the persons had other opportunities, our client was able to move a little bit more rapidly through the process, which enabled them to have first choice on the best talent. And the other opportunities took a lot more time from start to finish. And so accelerating the process had dual benefits. You got the best talent in the process, and then we were able to secure that best talent. Go ahead, Gary.
No, I would agree with that. We believe that when a client opens a search, it's in effect an MRI into the soul of that company in terms of how important this role is, and the timing. Candidates, A players, are very smart. If there's no momentum, that's a red flag to what is wrong with that particular opportunity or that company. So it's sort of like putting your house on the market. You got to get it ready, clean it up, and be aware that the best looking house is going to sell faster. So maybe I'll stop there with that analogy. But in any case, it's very important to, as Dwain says, make the time on your calendar for the recruiting process because it is consuming and has to displace something else.
And then lastly is the customer service posture, which is how the candidates are managed through the process once they touch the client side. There have been examples where candidates have not been treated particularly well when they've arrived on site throughout the process, when there are gaps or people are unable to maintain the time that was scheduled for the meeting and not show up for whatever reason. Well, those types of experiences are probably not the best experience if we want to capture the top talent. They would expect that their day is well mapped out, that they are escorted from place to place, and as Jerry mentioned in a prior conversation, perhaps even the way they're brought from the airport and returned to the airport as smoothly and efficiently as possible can be beneficial from a high-touch quality experience for some of the leaders that we work with.
Yeah, very definitely. I mean, I think I think that candidates are very much aware of the nuances and the small things in the recruiting process, and I think as executive search advisors, we're sometimes I am surprised at the degree to which the candidate handling is a bit lackluster, and I'm always imploring people to go the extra mile to have a schedule delivered to the hotel room if the person's out of town the night before, or so it's a red carpet treatment. I mean, I think that's maybe kind of sums it up.
Perfect. Going to the third area that we highlighted, which is to create a pipeline. Again, as the climate moves forward, and we think about 2015 and beyond, the ability to say, wow, this position is now open and it's a regularly recurring opening for your firm. There were times recently where the hiring manager could say to human resources or talent acquisition, pluck me a few good ones and we'll interview them and bring them on the staff. I'll bring them on staff. Now, the market is not quite as relevant for that type of experience. By the market being more aggressive in opportunities from more organizations, waiting until the last minute could prove to be an open position for quite some time. So we would encourage our organizations and partners to, where they can, cultivate talent, create a pipeline, and create a relationship in the marketplace where they don't have to wait until the last minute. There's already a running start such that when a position becomes available, they can take full advantage. We've used the talent mapping process with some clients that have selected us to help with that as an alternative and a means to not only identify appropriate pipeline talent, but also diverse pipeline talent, be that ethnic diversity, gender diversity, but that's a way to ensure that when the positions become available down the road that are already highlighted as you begin the year, that you already have some talent and you address the question of, are they out there? Any other thoughts on that one, Jerry?
Yeah, no, I think, one of the most nebulous things that is really hard to get, well, let me just start over. Just in terms of the human resource function, there's a kind of an old-fashioned term called workforce planning. And I think one of the more elusive things for organizations to do is to, as Dwain said, have the human resource planning process that goes along with the budgeting process and with the strategic plan of the company. So, this approach of really identifying, what skills and characteristics is the organization going to need, What are the key roles that are going to be needed? Do we have the proper depth of talent to meet the market needs going forward, to grow market share and to expand, globally, whatever the particular agenda might be? So I think, the toughest thing is for HR people to get in front of this issue and to be able to anticipate needs. And I'll close by saying I think if you're the head of recruiting or if you're the head of HR and the first time you know of an opening is when a requisition comes into play or requisition comes across your desk, then you're probably not doing your job, because it shouldn't be the first time you've heard about that particular need.
Well, thank you, Jerry. And the fourth area is the question, why you? Why you is many times part of the interview process when we're interviewing candidates. Why should you be the person we select? Why are you an appropriate candidate for this opportunity? But at this juncture, candidates are now evaluating organizations more aggressively on why should they join that organization for the next chapter of their careers. The reason this is important is because throughout the interviewing process, and this is where the human resources community is really important in helping the line managers or the persons who are on the interview panel, those 5 or more people, to understand that they aren't simply selecting the candidate, they're also addressing why this is a great place to work. So they aren't spending 100% of their time simply gathering information from the candidate about why they are good or what their experiences are, but also spending some amount of time in that process to ensure that they understand this is a great place for them to have the next chapter of their career, where they can grow, where they can add value, where their skills can be fully utilized. Any thoughts around how this has worked or not worked, Jerry?
Right. I think it's very key for all of us as professionals to have top of mind the 2 or 3 or 4 things that you're known for, that you've accomplished in the last the last year or so, or the last period of time, and the succinctness of those points, is very important. I think that the toughest thing, or the thing that I try to emphasize with HR people, is that you ought to have your metrics, both in terms of your accomplishments and your career, in terms of what your performance has been and what your accomplishments have been, in a succinct way. Much like when we listen to CEOs, they can talk about their companies in bullet kinds of ways, and then they can elaborate on those bullets. So when they're talking to shareholders, they're talking to customers, they have a very crisp view of where they're going and where they've been. And I think that's very key for CFOs to do the same thing. It's very key for HR officers to have that point of view and have that capability and be able to articulate things along those lines.
Well, I think for this area, it's also ensuring that the members of the recruiting team have their bullet points around benefits of working for the company. So when they're interfacing with the candidates, they have a few bullet points that are consistent across the members of the panel, and as well as appropriate for the role that the person is interviewing for. So that in that context, the candidate walks away with a picture of, here are several reasons why it would be great for me to move to this organization beyond this specific role at this time. Now, as we close this section around the benefits of the organization, there are also some things that we think could be helpful for the individual human resources leader and the person in talent acquisition. and really 3 areas we thought would be worth sharing that apply at all levels of HR, from Chief Human Resources Officer to members of their team across the divisions. The first is the metrics, and this is something that Jerry was referencing, really thinking about and sharing how your portion of the HR community of the world has added value in the organization. And I think Jerry used a very good analogy of saying the CEO, the CFO, when they speak about the overall company or their vision for the period of time or their recap of the prior period of time, they can capture that crisply and quickly and many times in a metric form. We believe there are some opportunities to do that similarly in human resources. And these can be in the areas of retention, cost implications, turnover, engagement. Those are areas where human resources can really play a value. Time to fill, there are many other metrics, but having those metrics and an ability to communicate those to other members within the organization would certainly be beneficial. Any other thoughts on that, Jerry?
So, sure, I think, it's just very important to have top of mind what I think are kind of the most you've ever done, right? The biggest budget you've held, the biggest number of people that have worked for you, the most people you hired in a particular year, the lowest turnover you ever had. So these metrics, these indices that you believe represent your efforts are really key to have top of mind, and they're exciting for us as recruiters to hear about. They're provocative, they're memorable, which is what Dwayne and I like. We like memorable candidates.
All right, good. The next area is things to work on. So as all executives, we all need our individual development plans. How are we going to be better next year? How are our teams going to be better? How are we going to build on the skills and the foundation that we've had? I guess the challenge in human resources is to ensure that this tool or types of tools or your version is actually being implemented broadly, for yourselves, but also for others. And there's a mindset for you and the people you influence and touch around continuous improvement. And while this is certainly the case in many organizations, because that is the nature of the beast at those organizations, the question is that the way you individually are approaching your work and the people you influence? How are we getting better this quarter than last quarter? How are we making sure that's as micro as the individual as well as macro for the overall organization that you're a part of? Any thoughts on that, Jerry?
Sure. No, I think it's along the lines of what we've said, Dwayne. I think it's very important for me when I'm introducing myself to a candidate, and I say the following thing usually. I say, I'm recruiting you, but tell me, that said, where are you in your career? What's next for you? And because my opportunity, should dovetail, and if this is going to work, it's got to be something that makes sense for you. So if, and again, we like it when people, have a point of view where they say, well, my goal is to be the head of HR, or if you're the head of HR, to be, if you're at a $200 million company, that you'd like to be with a multi-billion-dollar company. Whatever it is, and I mean, it could be, total rewards or whatever. But I had candidates the other day say, you know what, I don't want to be the head of HR. I just want to be. I love compensation. I love total rewards. That's my niche, and I want to be the head of total rewards in a large cap company at some point. So, Dwayne and I, we really like directed people. We really like people that are, pretty goal oriented. And I personally, don't like it when people talk about the the vague or the that are opaque in terms of what their goals are. I like to be able to have someone say what the exact position is that they want, because after all, we tend to get what we actually can tangibly identify and want.
Excellent. And the last area we talked about, I'd like to share in terms of what's important for the individual in human resources is the new worker, the younger workers. They are different. They have always been different. I'm sure every generation has been different when they were the younger workers entering the workforce. But the future lies in those younger, newer workers. And one of the challenges for many organizations is to make sure they are the right place for the younger worker, the person who's more adept at technology. How are we making it available for them in our workplace when perhaps your organization has not been one that embraces technology in the same degree that many of these younger workers are able to do? Leading those younger workers, attracting, developing, and retaining them will be critically important to the success of every organization over the next several years. How do you make your organization a destination for younger talent? How do you demonstrate that you are quite capable of effectively working with those younger workers to get the most out of them and attract, retain, and develop them? Those will be the difference makers for human resources as well as other functions, because they require a different way to think, a different way to approach and speak with them and to lead them. As we summarize, the market overall is improving in the U.S. quite dramatically, and we're seeing, as we close out 14, record Dow Jones, record production of oil, all leading to more manufacturing and more jobs as our unemployment rate reduces. What that will change for the best talent is that we're moving from a buyer's market where great organizations can go out and just grab any of the best talent, some of whom are in transition or from other organizations, to one where it's quite competitive for attracting and securing that best talent. A more balanced market, as it were. And lastly, as an individual, I think it's all about winning with excellence, adding more value, and helping your organization to attract and retain the best talent that's in the marketplace. Jerry, any other comments on your end?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great time to be in human resources. I just believe that it's a great portfolio to have, whether you're the top HR officer or the or a generalist, that you have a lot of information around people's performance, their potential, their pay, and you have an ability, because of the fact that you touch all parts of the organization, to weigh in and have a point of view on approaches, policies, and practices that you believe will grow the company. And I think that's something that I really am excited when the HR people I talk to really have that point of view, Dwayne.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. And any questions?